Hello everyone, hope you're well, and today we're going to be introducing the third and last indicator to our chart. So this third indicator is RSI, which stands for Relative Strength Index, and RSI is a very, very powerful indicator. And if you thought that MACD was the most powerful indicator out there, I assure you RSI is as powerful, if not more, than MACD. So without further ado, let's get started. So you're going to come here to indicators and you're going to put in RSI. And then, much like I like my MACD on top, I also enjoy having my RSI on top as well. So you're going to come over here, put merge up, then come over here, unmerge up, and then here right click and click on left axis. So I don't change almost anything on RSI. I don't change the values. I keep it at 14. And on style, the only thing that I do is I make it a little thicker over here. So in very simple terms, RSI measures momentum in the market, and it gives us overbought and oversold conditions. So if you come over here and you double click it, you can see that RSI will range from anything between 0 up to 100. And those regions is the reason why you have here shaded lines, because above this line is when the market is considered overbought, and below this line is when the market is considered oversold. Because we're going to be doing RSI, I'm going to take the MACD out. So I'm going to write this down here. If RSI is above 70, it is overbought. If RSI is below 30, it is oversold. And that's what these shades are here for. If you take a closer look, you see that the top shade is at the 70 RSI level and the bottom shade is at the 30 RSI level. You can also see that RSI does not stay at overbought conditions for long, and it does not stay at oversold conditions for long either. Now, just like moving averages, RSI holds a lot more meaning when seen at a high time frame. If you put RSI on the 1, 3, 5, 15 minute charts, it is nowhere as meaningful as when seen on the 1-day chart. Having said that, all these indicators work on any time frame. The only reason I'm showing you always on the daily charts is because it's a lot easier to see. Recall from the previous video on MACD, we analyzed how MACD's histogram allows us to see divergences. RSI works in the exact same way. It also gives us bullish or bearish divergences. So let's look at a few examples. Let's come over here to the 4-hour chart and let's examine this top right here, right? So recall that we saw divergence on the histogram on this top, and it signaled us to exit this market, right? And let's examine, because RSI did very much the exact same thing. In here, you can spot two tops, right? And these two tops are also visible on RSI, right? You see these two tops? So as you can see, RSI had bearish divergence. Let's make this green now. Bearish divergence, because in this case price remained exactly stable and RSI made a lower high. Let's see over here in April, and this is where it gets very interesting. You can spot quite the amount of tops here, right? There's a top here, there's a top here, here, and here. Then you have the 4 tops here. You have a top here, you have a top here, here, and lastly here. So let's say we're here, and how was I so sure that this first top here was not the top? Easy, because if you come over here to RSI and remove these, you can clearly see that RSI went higher from one level to the other, and so did price. So RSI was aligned with price. So then you ask me, how was I so sure that this was not the top? Because RSI continued to make a higher high, and so did price action, another higher high. So then you ask me, how was I so sure that this was the top? Very easy as well. If you come over here to RSI and you get rid of this, you can see that it went from here to here and it was higher, from here to here and it was higher, and then it collapsed all the way down here. However, the price was not collapsing, the price was still increasing. So this is hidden bearish divergence, and that's how I knew this market was going to collapse. So now I'm going to show you how you could have entered here and sold here like I did on the very top and on the very bottom just using RSI. Let's go over here. This is on a daily chart, and as you can see here, price was collapsing, right? Completely collapsing, but RSI was not, right? You see the RSI was collapsing indeed, but then over here RSI made a higher low. However, during that time, the price was doing nothing but lower lows. So where would you have entered the market? You would have entered the market right here. Right here. Why? Because RSI had just made a higher low on this candle, okay? This is the confirmation candle. You could have been ballsy and entered right away here, June 22nd, which would have been this one here. But then you could have entered at confirmation right here, June 29th, which is the same day that we did a higher low. So then you would have entered this market, and here's where you would have sold it. Let's move here to the 4-hour chart. You see here, much like histogram caught this beautifully, so did RSI, okay? Adding more confluence to my trade, why I entered such a heavy short exactly there. In here you have two tops. And this is going to sound a lot like the histogram story, because it is. You have two tops here, and you have two tops here. And you can already be guessing where I'm going with this. Price kept rallying higher and higher, almost parabolic. But RSI was not, okay? RSI was not at all. RSI instead did a lower high, while price did a higher high. This is called, again, hidden bearish divergence. So if you're doing this, your confirmation to sell was right here, when this fell through. You could have had a little fake out here, but not here. When this fell through, that's when you had confirmation, right on this candle, right? So let's look over here. This is another example here of a trade of mine. You have here in April again. We just examined this here, how you could have caught the perfect top, right? And this is how you would have caught the bottom before the uptrend. Here, you have RSI constantly making lower lows, and a lower low again. But then, a higher low appeared. So you can see here, we just made a higher low. But in the price action, we kept making a lower low. So a lot of people clearly saw this, because that's where this candle came from. Those were all the RSI traders that saw this and immediately entered the market, and rightfully so. And this support line held through, as you can see all the way here, because RSI is also support and resistance. So then you would have entered here, and like we examined before, you would have closed right here. So if you like the last examples, you're going to like this even better. This is another reason how it was so clear that 20,000 was the top. So you have a top here, and you have a top there. All right? And as you can see, you have those tops here too. They're right here. One here, and one here. And again, price was going up, and RSI did a lower high. Again, massive hidden bearish divergence. Now RSI is a whole lot more than just divergence. Much like MACD was not only divergence and it had the crossover strategy and the histogram, RSI has a lot more to it than just spotting bullish and bearish divergence. Let's come back here and give more reasons as to why I was so sure that this was going to fail, okay? That this was going to collapse. As you can see here, RSI is at the 80 level. So let's zoom back and see when was the last time RSI was at the 80 level. And you can find it right here at the very maximum all-time high of Bitcoin. So the way you got to think about it is, over here when price was at 8,500, we were at an RSI level equivalent to when the price was at 20,000. That's the way you got to be thinking about it. You always have to be seeing, okay, we're at this price level and we're at this level of RSI. When was the last time we were at this level RSI? What price was it then? The same can be said over here. On this top at 10,000, you had RSI at 70. The last time RSI was at 70 was right here when Bitcoin was at 17,000. 17,000 had the level 70 of RSI, and so did 10,000 here. You understand why this is so important? The same can be said for uptrend. So say here, right here, Bitcoin was at 5,800, right? And RSI was over here at 41. And the last time RSI was at this level was over here when Bitcoin was hovering around 4,000. This shows a lot of strength in the market because the market is equally oversold. However, the price moved up quite a lot, right? Quite a lot. It shows a lot of strength in the market. So let's look over here. Over here, RSI is at 80 and price is at 7,400. But last time it was at 80 was over here when price was at 5,600, right? On the daily level, this is very powerful, guys. This is very powerful. It shows a lot of strength in the market. And as if all this wasn't enough, there's more to RSI than this. RSI is so massively important that it itself has its own support and resistance levels. So again, let's go back to the 4-hour chart and let's come back here to June, for example. Let's see. Over here, you have RSI here constantly making higher lows, right? So when you see this, you can establish a trend line. And look at that. This trend line held beautifully, right? After 2 taps, you can already draw a trend line. So you saw that the RSI kept bouncing out of this trend line, but when it failed to do so, it did so correctively. So as you can see here, once RSI support broke, this collapsed 20% almost, okay, in a matter of 4 days. So I'm going to show you on lower time frames. Now we're on the 15-minute time frame, and I'm going to show you how these support and resistance mattered so much and how you could have spotted divergence no matter what time frame you're in. Let's look at an example here. Over here, you see this is last week, and you can see we're rallying, right? And as you can see, we had already bearish divergence here, right? Price was going up higher and higher, but RSI was not. RSI was actually doing a lower high. So then we came crashing down. And we can take this one step further. Recall that once you have 2 taps, you can already establish a trend line. So you can clearly see this was a very, very critical trend line, right? And this is all in a 15-minute chart. And you see that once it broke, you could have caught this short, and this short right here would have been a nice almost 3% short, right? You could have entered right on this candle, which is when RSI broke the support. And then you take your short, you ride it, and then you have here another divergence like we just said, and then you open the short again right here at the top, and you could have rode this down for a while. 5% in 12 hours. So let's take a look at more examples. You can see examples are everywhere here. You have here another trend line established for a while, and when it broke down, it did so correctively. And at the same, oh, this is quite the one, right? This was, wow, this was an 8% trade that you could have took right there. And if that wasn't enough, you also have here RSI divergence. So you have a top here, and you have another top here. And in the meantime, the price went up from one top to the other, right? Price went up, but RSI did not. RSI did not go up at all. RSI did a lower high. So you had the signal that it was going to collapse here at this level right here, and you could have waited for confirmation once RSI broke the support down. And once it did, as we just saw, it would have been quite the trade you took there. And you can keep going. You can see here again, you have a support established here, and once it broke, it did so correctively. Okay, 2% trade, a couple hours. Again here, another support was being established on RSI, and once we broke down decisively. 3.60%. And these are all on the 15-minute chart, so this was literally a 15-30-minute trade. And you can keep going. You can keep going all the time. You see here another support as well. Once this broke, look at that. 12% in a day. And you can keep going. I can keep going all day. You have another support here. Opportunities are literally everywhere in this market. So when this broke down, here you go. 3% trade in the same day. And I'm going to keep going. Again here. Another support broke. And look at that. Price corrected. 2% 3 hours. You could have taken this scalp with high leverage and make a sizable gain. Again here. You see that this literally does not stop. Support established. broke out of it, and look at that. 3% trade in the matter of 2 hours. So let's come back here to the daily chart and let's write everything down. So, RSI divergence. Lower high on RSI, but higher high on price action. Bearish divergence. Higher high on RSI, but lower high on price action. Bullish divergence. And lastly, RSI support and resistance. After 2 taps on 4-hour time frame or above, you can already establish a support or resistance line and expect price to react to it. Okay guys, so that'll be it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed everything so far, and I'll see you in the next one.